Hi, everyone. Happy Tuesday. It's such an honor to be here today with Bhuva Shakti, founder of Wallet Max, now author of Everyday Risk Wisdom, which I'm loving. I love the title, Bhuva. I love the title. And I love the fact that you're launching it in March. And March is Women's History Month. So you are truly embracing your own story and releasing it to the world that month. Bhuva, thank you so much for taking out the time to speak with me today. And everyone, my name is Tia Green Granger. I'm a marketing and PR professional and the founder of Liba PR. And I just have the honor of speaking with Bhuva today.
Thank you, Tia. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Like Tia mentioned, I'm Bhuva Shakti, founder of Wallet Max, and now the author of Everyday Risk Wisdom, launching in March 2026 in honor of Women's Month and leading into the Earth Month in April 2026 as well. Prior to founding Wallet Max, I spent few decades on Wall Street advising investment banks and capital markets on boardroom governance, global risks, and regulatory compliance. So you hear that theme quite a lot throughout this book. And today at Wallet Max, I've built a community of 1,000 plus sustainable startups, impact investors, and corporate executives. Don't forget to join us at our annual Emerald Summit with Startup Awards and Executive Dinner on September 19th this year, like less than a month away, as we kick off New York Climate Week as a day for real action.
This is great. This is great. Hi, Alvin. Alvin said hello. I just wanted to make sure that we say hi and to let everyone know, too, just the courtesy of since we're live, I will be asking Bhuva questions, but if you have any questions at all, please drop it in the comment section and I will make sure that she answers your question. But without further ado, I would love to know what inspired you to write Everyday Risk Wisdom?
I think what inspired me was a pattern that I could not ignore. Every time I was sharing my story, how I came from rural India to Wall Street boardrooms, people just didn't want to know, okay, those are the highlights, but they wanted to know how. I gave a TED talk in 2024, and right after the TED talk, I realized that the room was full of leaders who were not looking to see how to take more risks, but they were looking for a blueprint. They were looking for something practical, real, kind of take smart risks, not reckless risks, not just resilience, because everyone is born with resilience and you just have to tweak it, but more around, okay, where do we go from here? Where is the blueprint? Why do I have to learn everything? If someone has done it, can I have the roadmap and lessons? That's why I thought I'm going to share this book as a journey that led me from rural India to corporate world on Wall Street. I translated code and risk into most influential boardrooms in the world, which means I am happy to share my journey and story and learnings in this book, Everyday Risk Wisdom, so that so many people who came and spoke to me right after my TED Talk last year, who were also many times the first, the only, and overlooked, are able to navigate governance, risk, and compliance challenges without a map, right? So this good book could be your roadmap. And I also know the feeling of being underestimated, unheard, under-supported in many situations. It could be in a personal or a professional scenario, but I think this book is going to be the map or a practical guide drawn from my mistakes, my strategies, and my moments that mattered. And it has just one message. You don't have to be fearless, you just have to get moving, and this is your blueprint.
I love that. I love that. And, because you were talking about being the first. So I would love to know what can you share one of your experiences that like influenced this journey?
Yeah, no, definitely. So I come from rural India, like I mentioned. Our town did not have a library. We did not have a high school for girls. Girls were expected to shrink their dreams. But I also was a very stubborn girl. So I walked miles to borrow books, taught myself how to code. I was able to bet my future on a computer that was very first time introduced so many decades back, even before internet existed. So that journey taught me that I was doing risk management even before I landed on Wall Street as a professional risk analyst and then evolving into a risk strategist.
Wow, that's inspiring. You walked miles to get a book. I mean, and I know this question's not here, but I just have to ask this. You know, it is your story and it is launching for during like Women's History Month. And how do you feel about the little girls in India, like the town that you're from, and instead of them walking miles, they're able to take your book, like little girls, but like, you know, teenagers are able to see your book now. Like, how do you feel about that, that will happen?
Yeah, I think it's what my legacy is going to be. It's not about achieving what I can, but rather how am I able to give back, pay forward, so that someone else who comes behind me is not able to go through the same challenges. Rather, they are a little bit ahead in their game, where I had to figure out many things. You don't have to do that. So I think that will be my goal with this book, and also trying to say yes, I was the first and only in many scenarios during my early years in education, as well as on Wall Street, and even today when I am doing venture capital in many places. But then being the first and only is not a very good legacy or achievement to me. Not being the first and the only, but allowing someone else to be in the room and take the next and the next action behind you is what is going to be really meaningful.
Wow, Ruva. Just thank you for writing this guide, this roadmap for all of us to look and really see. Because again, it's your risk management guide to thrive in a complex world as an overlooked business leader. So this is needed. So thank you, just thank you. Um, can you share some key
Yeah.
challenges you faced as an outsider in your industry and how you overcame them?
Yeah, no, definitely. So, like I mentioned, we didn't have high school in our town, which meant I had to go to a nearby town, live in a monastery so that I can really get the education that I wanted. But then going from that monastery floor into Wall Street was a huge shift for me. And when I landed in New York City, being an outsider was just not a feeling. It was more a constant calculation. So many times in those Wall Street boardrooms, I was either the youngest, the only woman, the only person who looked different, sometimes the only person who might understand systemic risks that no one wanted to talk about. In one of those early days during my Wall Street career, I walked into boardrooms where data that predicted collapse was dismissed because it was never done like that in the past hundreds of years, right? So when you try to explain systemic risk, and if you're met with silence or skepticism, or even worse, dismissal, then one of the hard parts of being an outsider is also a double burden, which means you're expected to by default know more just to be seen as equal when you're not from the system per se. And you're also expected to speak less to avoid being seen as difficult. So, that I think is a lot of emotional labor for overlooked leaders to having to prove and soften at the same time. And it's exhausting, right? So, because I learned to treat silence as a signal, not as a stop sign. I think one of my breakthroughs came when I stopped waiting to be invited and started acting like I already belonged. I thought, okay, let me focus on what I can control, understand risk deeply, translate it clearly, show how it is connected to human impact, whether it is maybe a governance risk compliance framework that's very prevalent on Wall Street or a crisis. I went through the 2008 financial crisis. I was in the ground zero when that happened. Or even something like a compliance model. I try to anchor those in outcomes, not ideas. You really need to have the data and outcome and have a solid strategy to show how you can mitigate risk. The goal of a risk manager is to mitigate risk, not let the risk unravel and then try to put out the fire in a crisis. I think eventually that earned me trust, not just as a risk analyst, but also as a risk strategist. And for anyone who thinks they are an outsider in their industry, today I just want to say this, that power may not be always be loud. It could be quiet power. It is in the way that we name what others try to avoid. When we try to speak with clarity, explain data, have solid outcomes, and anchor it in purpose, I always base my decisions on the people involved and how it improves their lives or affects their lives. And then you let the record speak for yourself, even when the room doesn't, admit what you're trying to imply.
I love what you just shared. And what really spoke to me, Buva, is you said silence was a signal, it wasn't a stop sign. That's powerful.
Yeah.
Is that a chapter in your book?
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely.
Yeah, I like that. I like silence is a signal, not a stop sign. That's powerful. Um, so, how do you define thrive in the context of business leadership, and what does that look like in your practice?
So to me, you don't have to just rush to get to where you are, but if you really, because that's going to only take you tactically to where you want, and then you're going to be stuck in trying to see what next. Rather, to me, thriving in business leadership means rising with intention, right? It's not about rising fast, it's about making bold moves, building systems that can last beyond your legacy, that can create impact that is beyond your day to day titles and responsibilities. And that's what I think is really important when you're trying to build a legacy and still thrive, not just make day to day tactical decisions to get from one place to another place and not knowing what to do. When I say thrive, I'm also thinking of leaders who can weather disruptions. I mean, there is no shortage of disruptions today. You see, every day there is a challenge. How you, as a leader, can get through the disruption without losing direction. So that means someone who understands what the governance should look like in a leadership position, how to mitigate risk, like I mentioned, how to ensure you're ethically also compliant, taking care of people, but not just as some a checklist or a paperwork, more like architect, right? So you're trying to architect your future, your legacy, and also trying to bring along others so that there is impact for people more positively around you. So you're a thriving leader, which means you're not chasing visibility for the sake of it, but you're also trying to gain leadership and clarity for the people around you and creating a platform for them, right? When you're trying to practice this, so that's kind of the base foundation of the blueprint. But let's say you're trying to practice it. So I have a couple of simple examples. Probably something like you can say no as often as you say yes, or vice versa. So you don't have to say yes to something if you don't have the energy, if it's not in your strategy. But sometimes don't try to say no because you're not ready. You might be able to use your transferable skills, which I talk about a lot in the book, because you may not be ready with every skill set to face every disruption that may come tomorrow. It could be unknown or unexpected. So I rely heavily on transferable skills, and I've listed them in this book as well. And then the second thing is, like I earlier mentioned, it's not about reckless risk taking, but rather smart risks, also ensuring being sensitive to people and local cultures. When you're a global leader, you're not just building something in US or New York, rather you're trying to build for everyone, because you as a global corporation is going to expand into markets where you may not have good idea about the local culture and sensitivity of people. So ensuring you take care of that. And also, when I say try to take care of culture, ethics, people, and planet, it doesn't mean that you are giving away profits. So you are trying to build a profitable corporation for the long term, not just doing some tactical fixes to have short term profits, right? So thriving means building a long term sustainable business, taking care of people, local markets, culture, and being sensitive, while also bringing profitability for the long term of the business.
And you know something? What you just shared, that's what you're doing with the summit on September 19th. I mean,
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
creating a community for people to come in to thrive and share, especially with like one of the panels that you're going to have there, right? The startup panels. So you're doing this.
Yeah, exactly. So at our annual summit, one of the things that we talk about is take action, try to thrive as a leader and a risk shaper, because you're not going to understand every complexity that's going to come, especially if you are a sustainable startup, you may not get enough visibility or funding unless we have a stage. And that's the stage I want to offer, so that startups who really have sustainable, scalable solutions for people and planet are able to really share what they have. Because if you don't get that first opportunity to share what you already have, then there is no pathway to thriving, right? So you first need to get the opportunity, which is our stage on September 19th. And also, this book will also have a global preview on that stage where we'll share more about the lessons and the skills that I was talking about.
Yes. Yes. And the best part about it, we're going to have an excerpt from the book at the summit too, right? Which can be we're going to give a little nuggets to everyone that day.
Yes, you should expect that throughout the day, starting from the welcome remarks through closing remarks, throughout the day, through networking, lunch, breakfast, and then executive dinner at the end of the day.
Yes. Now, what are some common mistakes that aspiring leaders make when they're navigating industries? And how can you avoid them?
I think one of the things that I've seen repeatedly on Wall Street and being in the venture capital ecosystem today is aspiring leaders may mistake performance for power. When you try to over focus on doing more, proving more, producing more, believing that if you just stay heads down and be excellent, someone will eventually reward them. But leadership isn't about a merit badge system, right? It's a navigation game. So in high stakes environments, you need to be just as fluent in power dynamics as you are in performance. So here are some um, basic missteps that I have made, and I would like others to take this as a lesson to kind of get ahead of the game, whatever they are trying to pursue. So number one, I have tried to wait for permission to lead, and by the time I'm ready, the table has been already set without me. And then I learned my lesson, so that I don't wait for permission to lead anymore. If it matches my values and my mission, I just keep moving forward. The second mistake I've made is in my early career, when I was rising as a leader, I have ignored governance because risk seemed to be the most important thing, and I trusted that regulatory compliance is going to help protect us from managing and mitigating crises and disruptions. But when you ignore governance as a factor to ensure better risk management and compliance as a business leader or a rising leader, then you are able to make a very good foundation that's sustainable for the long term. And then the third mistake I've made is also trying to be visible before being clear, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you need visibility, you need to show your performance. But then if you're not clear about the value you add, then visibility without clarity only just creates noise. When you do that, you may lose trust of those key stakeholders who could be critical in trying to get it to the next level, right? So that's why I say try to kind of move with intention, avoid some of these mistakes, try to ask better questions, not just seek better answers, and build early risk fluency. So risk could be in so many ways. It's not just financial risk. It could be reputational risk, cultural risk, operational risk, whatever personal risk that you're trying to navigate through. Any type of risk, pick one or two and try to create a pathway and try to be intentional to kind of showcase with clarity on the value you add to high stakes stakeholders, so your visibility holds some power.
I love that. That's another key nugget already. Visibles hold key power. Silence is not silence as a signal. I mean, Buva, I'm so happy you wrote this book. It's going to be a go-to for a lot of moments, especially as a business owner. Like you have really great insights. Um, can you elaborate on the blueprint you mentioned in your book a little bit more?
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. And one thing I just want to highlight before we go into the blueprint is this book is for anyone who is, let us say, who's in college trying to get into early career. How do you navigate a new workplace? If you are in the workplace already, you're trying to get to mid or exec career level, how to navigate. But you could be a business owner, entrepreneur, or a venture capital investor, or anything in a similar ecosystem. This book is for you, whether you're navigating a personal or a professional goal. Now, in terms of blueprint, I've built it more like my lived experience through Wall Street boardrooms, through my rural upbringing, as well as today with Wallet Max, where I am promoting global sustainability. So it's designed for an overlooked leader who need to figure it out without a safety net, right? So sometimes in situations that are really high risk, we may not have a plan B. We just have to ensure that we make the right decision. And for that, you need a blueprint that has some credibility behind it. You can't just take reckless risks that may impact your personal, professional, or even people around you, right? It's also important that there are three pillars in this blueprint I'd like to share that are very near to me, but you can always customize this to your own journey, right? So, number one is what type of risk you want to take, right? So I kind of personally believe for me it's a personal risk, business risk, and planetary risk. Trying to ensure people, planet, and profits are protected from risk and how can we take action is my priority. Your priority could be something else. Whatever it is, choose your pillar of where you want to focus with risk mitigation and avoiding crisis and getting through disruption. The second thing is uh, there are frameworks like thousands of frameworks in the world about risk management, governance management, compliance management. But instead of just relying only on those frameworks, try to also see who benefits from this policy, who benefits from whatever you are trying to make as a decision. What does the system leave out? Who does the system ignore that has historically been ignoring, and how can you fill the gap? Those are very important aspects. Just because the system is rewarding certain set of people does not mean everyone is included in that. If some set of people were never included, then the system has always been partial. And I consider myself as one of those overlooked leaders as well. So the goal is, though there are frameworks, as per the blueprint, ensure that you also see who benefits and who gets left out and see how you can bridge the gap. And then the last thing on that I'll say is strategic visibility. Not trying to get visibility for the sake of it, but being seen at the right time for the right things, not just being louder, but being more aligned. And I think one of the very big actionable steps I have shared in this book also is I call it a risk compass. So, a risk compass is something where you can assess where you're playing small because out of habit, not out of strategy, and how you want to lead further from that, how you want to grow out of your comfort zone so you can take the next challenge and also make it more personalized as well. So, who is your mentor? Who is your sponsor? Who challenges you? Who expands your thinking? And the blueprint is not just about hustle, like I earlier mentioned, it's about clarity and precision. So, like you mentioned also, Tia, earlier, even at the Emerald Summit this year, we'll be walking through how this approach, this blueprint helps leaders to align better with capital, compliance, and more collective sustainable futures. So I'd say start with what type of risk, who are the people involved, and be strategic in your visibility, build your own risk compass, and then start small and try to grow out of your comfort zone.
That's the best. You got to embrace your fear, right?
Yeah.
That's so good. That's so good. In what ways can the lesson you provide help individuals manage risk in their business ventures?
Yeah, so it need not be just a corporation. It could be a small business, a startup, someone just starting as a freelancer or as a single person business, right? So the goal is not about avoiding failure, but rather how can you design both your psychological resilience as well as your business resilience, right? If you are trying to do things to avoid risk, avoid failure, then you may not foresee every single thing that happens out there. and it's going to be really difficult for you to manage every scenario, upskill yourself for every scenario, and you're going to be exhausted. But the goal is also to try to see how you can build your personal resilience and your company's resilience so that you are able to act on it when uncertainty happens. There could be unknown, unexpected scenarios, so you cannot plan for everything. So, in this book, I'm also sharing a lot of lessons where leaders can manage risk more proactively than reactively, right? So, after a risk has unraveled, a crisis has happened, trying to put out the fire is really difficult, and also a lot of lives could be impacted, and we have no idea how you may even recover from that scenario. So this book is about being proactive than reacting, and a couple of those lessons I just want to quickly share is number one, risk is never linear, right? So you cannot say, okay, so these are four risks I'm going to handle, and this is the sequence in which I will address them. This is the timeline. With such fast moving disruption happening today, you just have to take a layered approach. So address the most high priority, better benefit risk first, and then keep layering on top of it. Also, some of the frameworks I've listed in the book, use them as growth tools for both you and your team, both personally as well as a team collaboration activity. So the goal is to build trust with your high stakes stakeholders, not to avoid crisis, but add value if something happens. And also, more importantly, ensuring that you weigh long term impact in mind, even when you're taking a short term action. So, it's really important to build policies that provide safety and trust for your team as well as for your stakeholders so that everyone is able to consider risk as a strength and more proactively. And that's what I want to see with this book. I want to see us shift from controlling crises to proactively managing and mitigating and avoiding risks as needed, not 100%. So I don't want to promise that 100% you're going to mitigate every single risk out there in your life going forward, but you'll have a playbook to handle at least more than 90% of the risk, even if it is unknown, more proactively also.
Wow. And that's another topic that you will be touching on at Emerald Summit.
Yes, we're going to be talking about risk at Emerald Summit, especially climate risk, because it's happening during Climate Week and how it impacts people day-to-day lives. So climate is not a separate sector, that separate set of climate people are working on it. We're going to be talking about how climate risk affects people's day-to-day food, air quality, water, the neighborhood that you live, and the communities you have grown, you have built your business, how you want to continue to thrive, right? So it's about the basic necessities of people and our neighborhoods and communities, but being affected by climate risk. So how can we mitigate and be proactive and take action so we can be one step ahead of the game?
And since you're touching on like the global aspect, can you share with us, like, how do you see the current global economy affecting new leaders trying to break into the established industries?
Yeah, so like I said, I've been in the middle of the 2008 global financial crisis also. Every time we face a crisis, we think, okay, this will be the last crisis, but it is never the last crisis. Especially today, global economy is so uncertain. It's volatile. There is geopolitical tension. There are ethical challenges with the responsible use of technology, AI in particular. And we also see climate disruption that's affecting people's day to day lives. It's not about weather patterns or climate scientists or Arctic Ocean anymore. So we are literally living in a multi risk era. There are so many risks in so many directions that are not business related anymore. It's about people and their day to day lives, right? So in a global context, I see many people trying to break into established industries, but also not paying attention to the complexity and the fragility of the industry, right? So, how resilient is your industry, is your system, is your business, is also going to determine how fragile it is when disruption happens in a global economy scenario. And especially those that are in the margins, first generation executives, people of color, women in many sectors, they are not equally represented. So the barriers are so high, and the room for error is also very high, which means I tell leaders that trying to manage risk and getting more proactive is no longer optional. It's not an optional activity you can do. You have to be doing it from day one if you are leading or trying to rise to a leadership position from day one, whether or not something happens. So I call risk management as an insurance policy. You really take the insurance policy and you hope you never have to use that insurance policy, right? So that's how you create a risk playbook. You manage your blueprint, you create a roadmap, and you kind of tweak your leadership skills as needed. And you trust that you never have to use it, because when so many economic challenges are happening, it could be also really impactful in terms of innovation. So if you are constantly putting out fires in terms of a risk, and when the next disruption happens, how are you going to focus on creativity and innovation, building new products and services, and expanding your business in the global markets, right? So that attention is taken away from your strategic long-term sustainable growth to short-term things that are constantly disrupting. So that's why we want to talk about from a global sense, especially during Climate Week that's happening in September every year at Emerald Summit. It's not just local audience, it's an international audience. We see a lot of global leaders coming into New York City, not only for Climate Week, but we are also at the intersection of New York Fashion Week, UN General Assembly, where world leaders are going to be in the city. So what better time to talk about global crises and many risks that face humanity today and how we can take action. So if you are a new leader entering this economy, don't just build for today. That's all I would like to call out, where try to build for pressure, build for complexity, build for resilience, build for the long term, because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I mean, literally tomorrow something may come up, you may not be prepared. So the goal is to try to build frameworks and systems that can sustain the long term.
And you know that sustainability is key to making sure that we are okay, like as a globe, right? Like as a global aspect, sustainability is really key. And I just wanted to say hi, Nassar. He said hello. Hi, Nassar. Thank you. Now, I know we talked about mentoring. So, what role does mentorship play in your journey? And how can others find and cultivate meaningful mentorship relationships?
Definitely. And before I get into the mentorship question, I just want to also highlight the sustainability point that you mentioned. Sustainability is not about growing trees and recycling things. Sustainability means building a sustainable business that's resilient for the long term, building a sustainable health and well-being for yourself, so you're able to sustain for the long term in whatever you're trying to pursue, right? So sustainability is more holistic and long-term resilience than just about trees and recycling, right? It's never about just only climate, because it's also about people and business that are impacted in the middle of it. Now, talking about some of the sustainability reasons kind of ties very well into my mentorship challenge as well. So, I mean, in my early years, I was thinking someone is going to ask me, hey, can I be your mentor? And I lost time. So at some point, I approached mentorship slightly differently, and it has saved me from burnouts. It has saved me from blind spots that I didn't know I had. Like I mentioned, in my early years, I had no formal mentors. Kind of, I was trying to reverse engineering everything from outside in. But along the way, I had several people like my teachers, my colleagues. They saw something in me before I saw it in my self, right? So they just didn't give me advice, they gave me access. Giving advice is great, but if you don't have that help where someone can support you into giving you access, then I think it's going to be difficult to really rely on the real power of mentorship. I mentor a lot of people today, and when I mentor, I often tell my executives, it's not about hierarchy, who is mentoring who. I have mentors who are younger than me. I believe strongly in intergenerational mentorship. reverse mentorship, because I'm learning a lot from the younger generation today, how they are dealing with crisis and risk, right? So mentorship always is about pattern recognition, regardless of who is your mentor. A mentor typically should help you see what you're missing before it becomes a crisis. And it's also really important to build meaningful mentor relationships, right? It's not about, okay, so you had one mentor, you got something, you move on to a next mentor, not trying to make it transactional, because you never know when you will meet someone directly or indirectly in your future career, because it's an interconnected world. So instead of waiting like me in my early years, not trying to request or wait for someone to ask me, I start asking people, give me one insight on a specific decision, or where can I add value in a pain point that you have. That kind of builds a relationship, and at some point you may not have labeled it, but it would evolve into a mentor-mentee relationship. And the second thing I always try to do is look for mentors outside your industry. So I always try to talk to people outside my industry, my country, my community, my network, my immediate connections, because, like I mentioned, I believe strongly in transferable skills, and you never know how you can learn something from a totally different industry that can help you do something better today. And last thing is, mentorship is great, but I advocate for sponsorship, because it's going to be really important to get advice from mentors and proactively manage a crisis. But a sponsor speaks for you, gives you access, and elevates your strengths in a room where you are typically not present, right? So you need a combination of mentors and sponsors. Instead of waiting for the right person or the right time, you can start creating visibility with the value and see how the relationship evolves.
I like, and you know something, does it matter with just gender as a mentor? Because some people do ask, like, should I have a female mentor? Should I have a male mentor? Does it matter on your
No,
end?
it not really. And I think I shared in my TED talk also last year. My first mentor was not someone who really looked like me or had any background like me, but it so happened that we were able to support each other and add value to each other. And only later we realized, oh, actually we are a mentor mentee. So definitely not. If you think you need a mentor or a sponsor, that's why you have to talk to many people, see how it goes. It should be a match between the two of you, regardless of gender, ethnicity, and origin, right?
Yeah. Well, how can individuals leverage their unique backgrounds and perspectives as strengths in their professional journey?
Yeah, definitely. And also on the mentor topic, I just want to also clarify that at the Emerald Summit this year, we are also expecting a lot of mentors and sponsors who are supporting startups, business owners, and the reverse mentorship in terms of younger generation helping and kind of supporting the corporate executive generation. So I just want to clarify that building mentorship and sponsorship is really key within our community, because community exists because you don't have to go through it alone, right? So so that's one thing. And to just answer your question on how individuals can leverage their strengths, one thing is try to think about things that make you blend in. For me, I try to blend in on Wall Street. I try to change many things about myself so that I am trying to fit in. If you think you are doing too many such fitting in and losing yourself trying to blend in, then that's your trigger or learning moment where you have to take a step back and see that your difference could be your leverage, could be your strength. So, trying not to really blend in, to try to change yourself where you may not recognize who you are at some point is really important. But that is also not to say that you don't change yourself if there are better things, good things out there, so you can learn and improve. So You need to strike a balance as to what you really want to keep authentic to yourself. I call them non-negotiables in the book. Things that are really important to me that I'm not going to blend in or fit in. And it's a non negotiable for me and for my comfort. And there are other things where you have to really upskill, reskill, learn, grow. Those definitely are required so that you can also fit in and get to the next level. So, number one is trying to make that determination where you want to fit in, what's your non negotiable, and what you want to improve, grow, and try to fit into the next career growth or personal growth that you want to be part of. And also, one other thing is I earlier mentioned that I stopped asking for permission and started shaping outcomes, because when you're trying to wait to see if this is your strength, you may never find out until you try it out, right? So, if you have to detect some hidden signals in power structures, or if you have to advocate for your ideas, your seat at the table, you need to start making that effort. And it could be failure. I mean,
Mhm.
everything may not be a success, but at least you've tried, you've failed, you know what you don't have to do, and then move on to finding the next option. But if you never try it, you may never know what was your strength, right? So, in the book, I also offer a few frameworks on how to turn your personal strengths into professional strengths, and vice versa, because transferable skills can be between personal professional lives, between industries, between career levels, whatever you're trying to pursue in the startup ecosystem or the corporate ecosystem or a student or early career, right? So it doesn't matter. So it's very important to ensure that you trial a few things before you finalize what your strength is and go for it. And one caution here is it may not stay the same for all your entire life. In my early years, some of my strengths were very different from my Wall Street years, and they are very different today. So, have some flexibility and room to pivot and switch as needed based on whatever life's context is for you and whatever disruption comes in the world, right? And that's okay.
And thank you for saying that. And I know someone out there that's probably saying the same thing. Thank you. Like your messaging is coming in at the right time with the state, like what's going on in today's world. So thank you for sharing that, but also creating everyday risk wisdom. Thank you,
Thank
Buva.
you, Tia.
Um, the next question I have, I know I have a lot of questions, everyone, because it's just her book is fascinating. So the next question I have is for those who do feel overlooked in their careers, what you just shared, what advice would you give to help them transition from being an outsider to an insider?
Yeah, so I specifically gave a subtitle for this book as Overlooked, because you may be overlooked. I have been overlooked, but doesn't mean that we are not qualified. So, first thing we want to ensure that we tell ourselves is being overlooked is not the same as being unqualified. Many times it's a reflection of broken systems, not broken people. So I've spent decades in boardrooms where decisions were made by for those who are already in power, right? So early in my career, I thought, okay, I had to wait to be chosen, and then later I realized if the table is built to exclude you, your job is not to keep asking for a chair; it's to build a circle, and that's what I talk about in this book. So why wait to get a chair, find a seat in a table that may not be built for you? Rather, build your own circle, and that's what I think I've built using Wallet Max, where you have like-minded people who mutually support each other, and you're not fighting to get a seat at the table. Everyone has equal opportunity to support each other and to offer something to each other, right? So that's one concept in the book that I have strongly advocated for, where if the table is not right, don't worry, just build your circle. And that's a first step towards moving from an outsider to an insider. In certain ecosystems, you could be an outsider, but in certain other ecosystems, you could be an insider. So you have to decide whether you want to do outside in or inside out, right? Depending on whatever your personal and professional priorities are. And also ensuring that the turning point when you stop moving and start positioning is when you align both your professional and personal priorities. People try to say keep your personal life outside professional business and vice versa. It never is the case, especially during the pandemic and post pandemic. We are seeing there is a blurry line, very thin line between personal and professional roles. What you do in personal life affects your professional career, whatever you're trying to do, and vice versa. So, trying to have balance between both so that you are not compromising one versus other is also really important. And also very important, when you're trying to build your circle doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be isolating yourself from the system where you want to thrive, which it just means that you can maybe speak the language of the system but never lose your identity, right? So that kind of helps you to stay in the system but be yourself as well. So that's also another strategy. And the most important thing is, like I mentioned, network, 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 both in your industry and outside. You need internal advocates within your system, but you also need external credibility at the same time. So, having a broad network in terms of how you can define what you can do and not think of overlooked as unqualified, but rather see whether you want to be in the system and change it inside out, or you want to build your circle and change the system from outside in. Both are options.
And one thing I want to say to everyone is with the events that you curate and that you have, I always love that you say always have an ask, always come in and ask. So do you want to share the exact wording? Because I that's what I'm saying. When you come to my events, have an ask for someone. And I love that. So can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely. So it's kind of become a practice that when you come to my community events, initiatives, anything that we do, we are here to help each other. So we are not a community for people who want to transact and get something tactical for today from someone else and disappear, right? So then we are not the right people for you. What we are, where you can thrive and collectively all of us can thrive, is I have a give and I have an ask. Not just people attending my event. In every event, I also personally have a give and ask, which means collectively we are finding those people who can take help from us in whatever we are giving. It need not be big, it can be small, whatever you think is relevant or whatever you think you can do. And make a bold ask. Make an ask that will help you. I don't try to have an ask that's for the next 12 years or 12 months. Rather, what will be impactful if you make an ask that will change one thing for you in the next 90 days? So, if you're able to come with what you can offer in the next 90 days and what can change your life, even a small way in the next 90 days, as an ask to someone else, then this community is for you. And you'll see that at the Emerald Summit with everyone by default doing it because we have practiced it for so long, so many times. I don't even have to introduce the concept anymore.
Yes. Yes. And if anyone has a question soon, please let us know. Again, just let us know if you have any questions. And I only have about one more question left here. Can you share a success story from your career that illustrates the principles that's discussed in your book?
Yeah, so I'd say one of the things that happened was during the pandemic, and I shared this during my TED talk as well last year. It's live on my website, you can look at it. But one of the critical moments was everyone in the world was going through one pandemic, one crisis at the same time. It kind of leveled the playing field where everyone is the same, regardless of where you are in the world. Then that meant you have to make some adjustments in what you do on a daily basis. But I was working on Wall Street, which means regardless of what happens in the world, we have to make our profit margins. We have to meet timelines, and that's really important. And I was kind of the overlooked leader in my team, so as to say. So, which means I had a very different opinion versus everyone who was part of the system already. So, instead of trying to force people when they are already struggling with what to do in their personal life, in their families, in their neighborhoods, because all of us are dealing with a pandemic, I suggested that we try to focus on what the people need, pause things for a week, not for long, take care of their needs, and then come back, revisit, and still try to meet our profits, not compromising, but maybe a little bit late, but no lives are lost, right? So
Mhm.
I think that was a very important moment where someone who looks different from the system can bring a different perspective where yes, profits are important, but trying to delay the project by exactly 1 week is not going to be a big deal for a $1 billion company, which means you can save lives and still make profit if you give people extra 1 week to take care of their families struggling through the pandemic. I thought that was a very turning point moment. And there were so many such moments before that. I try to highlight this pandemic moment more so because all of us experienced it, though I have several such examples from Wall Street that I've quoted in the book, which some people may relate, but some people may think, okay, it could be different today because that happened like few decades back, right? So, depending on who you are, I think trying to speak truth to power is also really important if you think someone more vulnerable than you will be impacted. And I think that's what we are also doing at the Emerald Summit, where we are bringing together leaders across climate, finance, policy, technology, where we are taking action, designing systems where the next generation doesn't have to risk everything just to be heard, right? It's not for today, for the next 5 years, 10 years. We are trying to take action for the next generation that's going to inherit things from us.
And that's great because you're creating a legacy even for your own family. So your
I would
daughter,
say, yeah,
you're paving the path for her as well.
yeah,
That's
that
really
I'm
good.
thinking about my daughter as well. Yeah, what can I do better so she doesn't have to go through what I went through, even in the slightest positive, better way?
Now, I know we discussed the launch of your book being during Women's History Month, but my thing is, how can um, interested readers get a copy beforehand?
Yeah, so we are launching in March 2026. Incidentally, it's a Women's History Month, but also leading up to Earth Month, which happens in April 2026. So we'll get a global preview and lot of learnings from the book. Number one, shared at the Emerald Summit this September 19th in New York. So if you're around, feel free to join us. It's on our website. You can take a look. I couldn't think of a better place to begin launching a preview of my book than the Emerald Summit, where we have built for risk takers as well as sustainable minded leaders, where we are shaping what's next for the people, planet, and profits. The next opportunity would be you can also either at the summit, before the summit, or after our September 19th summit, go to the website and sign up to get pre launch toolkits, behind the scenes content. Then you will probably be signed up and will be able to download many parts of the book even before it's live in the bookstores, both print version and online version. And then the last opportunity is the book is available for pre-order in March, will be in your hands in April. You get online edition in March and online and print edition in April. So the first step is you can sign up on the website even today to be notified for pre-launch bonuses and toolkits. The second opportunity is come join us at the Emerald Summit so you can really get a live preview of everything that's in the book, even a sneak peek. And the third opportunity is anytime after September up until March, you have the opportunity to sign up for toolkits that come with the book. That's only available for audience who sign up before the book launch. Because once the book launches, you have the book already. So why would you get a bonus, right? So it's kind of an incentive for our early supporters.
That's great, Buva. That's great. Now I know I wrapped up with my question. Does anyone have questions for Buva in regards to the everyday risk wisdom? Let's see. We just had a lot of hellos, which is great. Now, okay. So just to let everyone know, we are going to be here weekly leading up to the Emerald Summit. And please join us for our weekly live sessions where we'll give you a little bit of a taste of what to expect leading up to our upcoming event. And Buva, what is one keyword that you feel like that people will be able to take away from the summit?
I would think the one keyword that you can take away from the summit is community. Because it's not about, okay, so we meet one day at the summit, we hang out, and then we don't see each other. My events in this summit, especially events that we run throughout the year, including our annual Emerald Summit with Startup Awards and Executive Dinner, people come organically, more word of mouth, and they connect, collaborate, and they continue to engage as a community throughout because everyone has a give and a ask. It's not transactional. So I'd say community is the most important thing when you join us at the summit this year.
And then how can anyone purchase a ticket?
Yes, getwalletmax.com is the website. GETWALLETMAX.com. Once you go there, you have a one-click button where you can just register for the summit. There are multiple ticketing options. Choose whatever interests you.
Great. Well, Buva, thank you so much for your time today. It's always an honor talking to you. I learn something new every time I talk to you, offline and online. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Tia. Thanks, Tia, for talking to me. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Definitely check out our summit on September 19 and sign up for pre-launch bonus toolkits that's on the website before the book launches in March. Thank you.
Thank you.